Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is are we calling ourselves the Public Safety Finance Team? Is that what we're calling ourselves? It's our Public Safety Financing meeting. It's technically a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. So we'll get the niceties out of the way. We're going to start with public comment. Anyone here for public comment? Not seeing anyone in the room. Do we have anyone on Zoom? If you are on Zoom and you want to make a public comment, please push your raise hand button.
Nope.
I'm going to close public comment. So the rest of this meeting is a meeting of all of us. I want to thank everybody for coming. Let's go around the room and do intros. And then we have several presentations and conversations we'll have. I guess I'll just kick it off. I'm George Marlin. I'm a Clear Creek County Commissioner for the central portion of the county.
I'm Jody Hartman-Ball. I am from the West End, District 3, Clear Creek County Commissioner, sorry.
Peter Lichtman, County Attorney.
Megan Heiler, Public Information Officer for Clear Creek County.
Aaron Crawley, Clear Creek County Store.
Lynette Kelsey, Police. Beth Luther, Clear Creek County.
Kelly Babian, Clear Creek Fire.
Rich Barrows, Selectman, Georgetown.
Wendy Cook, Mayor of Empire.
Hi, Chuck Harmon, Mayor in Idaho Springs, and I should mention that Andy Marsh, our city administrator, will be joining us in about 35 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Woody. I'm with the Alpine Rescue Team.
Tom Wood, Alpine Rescue Team.
Rachel Harlow-Schock, Finance Director, Assistant County Manager at Clear Creek.
Rebecca Lloyd, Clear Creek County Commissioner from the East End.
Jeanette Peel, Empire Town Administrator.
Brian Bossart, County Manager.
Overall, Deputy County Manager.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you who are continuing to attend these. I still think we're doing meaningful work here. And thanks to our visitors that are here to present and help us understand this stuff. We have 5 things on the agenda here. We're going to get a presentation from Alpine Rescue. We have a presentation, I think, from Clear Creek EMS and the Sheriff's Office. Maybe just Clear Creek EMS on service delivery, resident versus non-resident. We're going to talk about the impacts of property tax versus sales tax on tax-paying citizens of Clear Creek. We're going to give an update on the survey that we're doing around needs in the Sheriff's Office and EMS. And then we want to schedule our annual meeting of the Clear Creek Fire Authority. So that's what's on the agenda for us today. Let's start with Alpine Rescue. I believe you all have slides, right? And
We do.
Megan, you're prepared.
We'll see if this all works.
Yep. There.
Okay. Floor is yours. Thank you. Please proceed.
We can click it so it's. You have to read it. There we are. So Tom and I are here. We were asked to give a kind of a brief overview at the 30,000 foot level of what Alpine does. So I'm going to do the first part and Tom will take over and then I'll kind of finish and then we'll both be available for questions about that. So basically, this is kind of what we're going to cover today, who we are, the history, capabilities, incidents, then some stats from this past year, 2024, and then how we do our funding. So pretty brief on that. So we can go to the next slide. So basically, we were established in 1959. We're the third oldest backcountry search and rescue team in the state. Rocky Mountain Rescue Group out of Boulder is the oldest. Then the Arapahoe Rescue Patrol, the high school, is the second oldest. We have 80 to 100 highly trained non-professional or non-paid professional mountain rescuers. Evident yesterday with 27 of them up on Grizzly Peak for an 8-hour evac of a skier caught in an avalanche. So lots of training goes into how we got there. Our leadership is a little different. We have dual leadership. We have a president, which basically deals with administrative duties, and we have a field director that deals with operational facts. So Tom and I have both been field director. I actually had a stint as president back then. So from a statewide, we're one of 13 teams in the state of Colorado that are nationally accredited by the Mountain Rescue Association. And then I think we're the only team in the United States that has an MOU with 3 different county sheriffs. and that's with Clear Creek, Jeffco, and Gilpin. Paid staff. We respond statewide and national incidents. Both Tom and I, years ago, went down on the Columbia shuttle recovery and spent multiple weeks searching for shuttle parts. And then more recently in 2013, Alpine was very much involved in the Larimer County and Boulder floods that went on for a week to 10 days. So we do that stuff. We're an independent 501c3, and our thing is we don't charge. No expense to the sheriff's, no expense to the people we go after and stuff. So we do the next slide. A little history, again, founded in 1959. There was an incident in Turkey Creek Canyon, 285, just in Jefferson County, with 4 climbers, one that perished and 3 others stranded. Basically, there were citizens and 3 fire departments that did the rescue that day. And after that, the 3 fire chiefs got together and said, we need to get a team that's trained to do this. So that's kind of how we formed. Not long after forming the team, we became members of the National Mountain Rescue Association, and we were the 2nd team in the state of Colorado to do that. And through the Mountain Rescue Association, there are regions. There's 6 regions. We're in the Rocky Mountain region. So Alpine was a co-founder of the Rocky Mountain region, the MRA. And then currently at the state level, there's the Colorado Search and Rescue Association, which is an association of teams. There are 38 standalone teams, and then what I call sheriff's teams that they volunteer directly to the sheriff. I think there are 11. I was the past president. I am past president now. I was president for 7 years. So I come with that background, and we were involved in the legislation back in 21 and 22 that we talk about the funding that came through that. So we can go to the next one. This is a little bit about what we got. It's kind of interesting. Looking as I was going, when I first joined the team 37 years ago, we had 1 vehicle, very old, and we had 1 snowmobile, even older, and we didn't have a building. And now I look at where we're at. We're at 3 rescue vehicles, a mobile command vehicle. We just got a brand new tracked UTV, which is, I think it got used 2 days after we put it in service. We have ATVs and then 3 ATVs, 6 snowmobiles. And then this year with some of the funding we got from what's called the BSAR grant, we now have 3 full suspension electric bikes. We saw a need with the new bike park, and I'm going to talk about that. That increased our call volume for a while. And then we have team members that are setting up our drone team. And I know that's been big across the state with sheriffs, with fire departments and stuff. So we're just trying to get into that system. So that's what we got there. So I'll turn it over to Tom to talk about what we kind of do.
Yeah.
Real world.
So we kind of cover just about all bases in the backcountry. There's a couple things that we don't do. You can read what we do there. We don't chase bad guys. So we'll never act as a posse. We're not trained for anything like that with law enforcement. We say we don't go underground, but we've been on 3 different mine rescues in Clear Creek County, I think, over the years that we really shouldn't have been on. And we won't go in the water. We leave that to the swift water teams. We'll do shore support for that, but we won't go in the water. And as far as our medical capabilities, we're a BLS agency. I think we have a slide there with how many folks we have with that. But
What's BLS? Sorry.
basic life support.
Thank you.
So we can't carry or push drugs.
Okay.
Basically. Next slide, please. It's the cool, sexy stuff like high angle rope rescue that people think that's what we do all the time. That's a minority of our calls. Typically what we'll do more of are carryouts. That's our bread and butter. But high angle rope rescue is often over at Cat Slab off of Tunnel 5 there. We do a lot there. We do stuff up at altitude, obviously, like up on Bierstadt. Our call volume for Evans will go down this year because the road being closed. But what we found is that doesn't change our call volume. Our call volume went up this year, even with the closures and everything. People just go to other places. So low angle is our bread and butter. We do a lot of that. That's very manpower intensive, very fatiguing. We do have locations that take hours to get into. with us carrying all the gear. Next slide. Again, carryouts are really our main function. We have some good equipment that we use now that things have come a long way. Back when I joined the team 27 years ago, our litters weighed, I don't know, close to 50 pounds. They were steel in one piece and a pain. And now they're like 17 pounds in titanium. So our gear has advanced quite a bit. Next slide. Avalanche rescue. Clear Creek County historically is one of the highest concentrations of avalanche fatalities in America. For being a small county, its proximity to I-70 and Denver puts it at a really popular destination for a lot of backcountry skiers. And just given our snowpack and how many avalanches we have in general, it's a pretty disastrous mix. I don't even know how many avalanche recoveries we've done. It's a pretty high number, but Clear Creek County is in the top 10 counties in North America, probably for winter rescue. Our call volume used to go down dramatically in the winter. And nowadays with everybody since COVID wanting to get out, we're out year round consistently. And our call volume in the winter has gone up significantly. Typically in the past, we would get calls mostly on the weekends, but now that it's so crowded in the backcountry, we're seeing calls Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just as much as the weekends. Next one, please. Search is a big part of what we do. It used to be that we primarily did searches and then once in a while did rescues. And now it's kind of shifted where we're about 50-50 with search and rescue. And I think rescues are probably even a little higher now than 50%. But searches, they can go anywhere from like 5 minutes to weeks. We've had some that we've been on for months, trying to give the family closure. So this is all folks taking time off from work to go do this stuff. And, we have a fair number of retirees that are on the team now, but it still takes a lot of people to man a search and to stay out for 24 hours on some of those calls like that. So it's quite a resource suck. This is our percentage of medically certified folks that we have. We had a mandate given to us by county sheriff several years ago to get EMR, emergency medical responder training for the majority of our members, which we have done. But we also have paramedics, nurses, PAs, doctors, a lot of very well-trained medical folks, but we function at the BLS level. We do have a program with Clear Creek now where they have a SAR medic go in to the field with us so they can do more advanced medical interventions like pushing drugs. That's the main one. To be honest, pain medication. Yeah. So, medical calls for us have gone up in recent years, I think. Typically, it used to be a lot more people that were just lost or just tired, but we're seeing a lot more accidents and cardiac events as well.
Yeah, so we're almost at the end. So this, again, showing that we have the MOUs with the 3 counties. Last year was our highest incident call, 172. One thing I wanted to bring up, and I have it there, we're a big team and probably one top 2 or 3 in the state. We have a lot of people, so some of the smaller counties, whatever, need help all the time. And so we average about 30 calls to other sheriffs across the state, away from Gilpin and Jeffco. And part of that is now at the state level, there's called the Colorado Voice Rescue Team, which is done with National Guard and civilian mountain rescuers. And we are one of the 4 teams that provide 8 rescue techs. So they're the ones that are lowered on the hook and do the rescues. So we have 8 people doing that. And then the other thing at the state level is what's called a state SAR coordinator. And there are 15 right now. We're training 9, which is great. And 5 of those are Alpine people. So you look at that, there are 37 teams, but Alpine's got 5 of the 15 state SAR coordinators. And we're on 24/7.
Could you tell me what SAR is?
Search and rescue.
Oh, sorry. Thanks.
There'll be, yeah. And I also use the word BSAR, which is backcountry search and rescue. And that was in the legislation in 2021. So we now actually have a definition. Because you say search and rescue, that can mean urban, maritime, whatever. So now our definition is backcountry. So we can go to the next one. I took part of this from our annual report, but just our statistics. Again, we had 88 team members last year. That dropped a little bit started this year, and now we're running a new class with 15 new people. 68 of them are trained to go into the field and do the backcountry rescues. We've been real fortunate. It's kind of a offload for longtime members that may not be willing to go up on the mountain again. But we have an associate program that they do fundraising for us, and they do PSAR, which is public education. And so they're doing that. You look at our volunteer person hours, 20,522 last year. And then you look at it, we did a study with the Department of Interior pay scale using 3 different pay rates, because we have 3 different ranks on the team. We have a support rank, a rescue rank, and then the mission coordinators. And you look at that, the average of those 3 pay scales was $37.60 an hour. So that value given back was $771,000 of service to the 3 sheriffs. And just so you guys know, 70% of that was Clear Creek. So 500 and some odd $1,000 of free service that we're doing. So I think there's one more. So then the last thing of our funding, and it's changed a lot, but we still do fundraising events. We did like the Evergreen Town Race, which we don't anymore. We did it for 40 years. We still do a Bruise for Rescue thing. We do the Mount Evans Ascent, so we do other fundraising where we get some money. We've set up with Colorado Gives. So that's been every year. We send those and we get funding from that. We've gotten more recently, more corporate donations, but most of the donations are public, and a lot of them from the people that we rescue, and that's been great. And then the BSAR fund grants, there are 2 different grants. One was the old established one with hunting and fishing licenses that started in 1987. And then the most current one is the funding, Senate Bill 249, the Keep Colorado Wild. So when you register your car, that $29 goes into a fund that, and this supports all the volunteers. We estimate there are 2,500 volunteers that do backcountry search and rescue in Colorado. So this is the first year the 2.5 million's come in to help all those teams and all the sheriffs. So that's in a nutshell what we do. So at this point, I think if there are any questions that anybody has, oh no, I forgot the sheriffs and the sheriffs on the funding. Forgot that in the last one. So the 3 sheriffs also contribute funds every year, and that money's used to pay our workers' comp.
Which has gone up significantly.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot. So that's I think that's our number 1 line item on our budget is workers' comp by a
By a
lot.
long shot. So that's all we got.
Thank you. And I could have introed this with a little bit of context for you, but maybe you haven't. This is a group that's trying to figure out how we're going to sustainably fund all of our public safety needs up here. We're trying to understand our public safety system. It's quite complex up here in a county with 9,500 of us and 30,000 people driving through us every day that need rescue. And so maybe I'm just also trying to jog everybody else is in the room, like why we wanted them to come and talk, and I'll open it up. Questions? Alpine Rescue?
Hopefully we'll make it easier on you. We're not going to do financial burden.
Where do our incident hours rank nationally? Do y'all know?
Our incident hours?
Very high.
Probably the number 1 in the United States.
Wow.
And the reason I say that is look at Boulder or Summit County. They're in the 190 to 200 range incidents, but that's in county. And you look at where our members live, they're in the front range. I live on the east side of Denver. I have to drive through downtown every time. And so for me to go up to Mount Bierstadt 30 times a year is 70 miles one way. And so you look at those hours. So like yesterday's call happened at 11 and members didn't get home till 8. And it's just, lots of hours and a lot of it's driving.
Yeah, the average duration of a call for us is much higher than almost any other team because of the distances we have to cover. And just the terrain, how the county is split up. You know, if we had a call that was in the far side of Clear Creek or Gilpin County, and then we got a call on the bottom side of Jefferson County, we could spend 3 hours just driving from one call to the next. And then we start doing the things in the backcountry. So it's a lot of windshield time.
Thank goodness we don't have very many calls in Gilpin. Gilpin is 7% of our calls. Jeff goes 23, 24. So that's kind of the breakout we got.
What does your recruitment program look like?
It's pretty phenomenal because I've watched, my brother was a volunteer firefighter, and knowing that the fire departments have a hard time keeping people on. Well, we run a class every years. It's been, we required them to go to an orientation. We had 3 orientations. We had 188 people interested. We had 100 applications, and we interviewed 30, and then we cut it down to 15. So and to be honest, that's because you got the metro area and we got 3.5 million people to choose from. Whereas if you're in West Cliff, you know, you might get one person that walks in, they're going to give them a pager that day. So our class, they started in January. In 2 weeks, they'll be able to start attending missions. And then they don't get voted on until October. So it's a 9-month process.
Yeah, and it's interesting that our program is really rigorous and strict. And we end up trying to discourage people from joining because we found that a lot of people have a different perception of how exciting it is versus how it's not most of the time. So we've done a lot of homework to make sure we educate people before they even interview to come in so that they know exactly what they're getting into. And we typically, from each class that we've done in the last several years, we retain probably 95% of the people for 5 years or so. So we have a different problem in that we can't get rid of people.
They don't leave.
They don't leave. Yeah. So that's why we don't do a new class every single year, because with what we pay for workers' comp, we couldn't afford it. We have to keep our numbers as low as possible and be as fiscally responsible as we can, because from year to year, we have no idea what donations are coming in. So we have to have our budget at the lowest possible common denominator year from year to make sure that we don't have a shortfall.
There was a program, and I don't know if it was state or if it helps you at all, where, you know, if you hike, you can donate to some sort of.
That's the BSAR. So that's.
Oh, that is.
That's the old one.
Oh,
It
okay.
used to be called the SAR fund. Now it's called the BSAR fund.
Okay.
And that it's called the Corsar card.
Okay. Yeah. Mine comes up this year, so I'll
And
renew it.
you buy a 1 year or 5 year.
Yep.
CPW just, you know, and they're taking a quarter out of your fishing and hunting license. I'm on what's called the BSAR Council. There's talk to raise that to a whopping 75 cents. But that
Oh, you're not saying 25%. You're saying 25 cents.
cents of every fishing license
Oh,
and hunting license.
Hmm.
So that's been the money since 1987. So it's about 400,000 a year.
yeah, but BSAR was more than that, or SAR, whatever.
The new legislation with the KCW is 2.5 million. So now
Right. But when I bought mine, it was like
One-
$25 for 5 years.
it should have been, it just went up. It's $5 and $20 now. It used to be $3 or $12.
Okay, I guess I did buy it for my whole family, so I
If you-
forget.
Yeah, and that's how you support all the volunteers across the state. And now even more doing your vehicle registration supports us even more.
Okay, good.
So those are the two, and we haven't seen funding like that ever. And this is the first year. It allowed us to get our 3 new electric bikes. It allowed us to get the new UTV, tracked UTV that was used way too many times this winter. So that's been great for us.
Good.
So from a financial side, but it's limited. And it's basically your toys. It won't cover the insurance. Yeah.
Oh.
So we kind of go, you'll let us buy a truck, but you won't use that money to pay for the insurance for the truck.
Okay, so if you donate via Colorado Gives, is that
That's just,
open-ended? Okay.
yeah. So it's kind of, and it's a new fund. I mean, we're in the first year and it's having its hiccups. It just started.
Okay.
And we've taken advantage of it. We started in October. So it's been great for us. It's been great for the teams. You know, we got and then there've been other grants. So we got another grant from another legislative bill in 2021 to help pay for a new rescue vehicle we got last year. So that kind of stuff's been great. And so, yeah, it's been wonderful. And with the sheriff's covering the workers' comp, that's been perfect. Jeffco used to do all our repairs and now, but we can get the repairs on the new grants. So it's kind of been, we're learning how it goes, but no, Alpine's doing real well in that sense.
I'm curious, do you have any volunteers from in-county?
Yes, I'm one. I think there's roughly,
6 or 7.
there's more. I think it's closer to 10, probably, with the new member class that we have.
Great.
We had them in. I think
Yeah.
it's probably around 10 to 12 members that are in county here.
And then a pretty good chunk in Evergreen. And then Golden's been a hot spot. But you look at where we respond to, it's,
Hmm.
you know, it works out great.
We hear about you. Yeah.
You probably hear us driving up the road with all the other visitors. I mean, that's the one thing. We're the only team I know of in the state that the sheriff has authorized us to drive our personal vehicles emergent.
Oh.
But we can't get there if we don't have
Yeah.
lights and siren.
Yeah.
Friday afternoon in the summer.
Yeah, we have
You guys know.
more freedom to run emergent in the state of Colorado than the state highway patrol does.
Hmm.
Because they're limited to a certain area.
Do you ever have problems getting up a Guanella Pass in the summertime or September?
Every time.
Yeah.
It was that or driving up Highway 5 and all the people are there with the sheep and you know,
Bikers.
yeah. So it's been ongoing for years and years and years, but so we'll be interested to see how Highway 5 develops with, gonna be closing all summer, but
All right.
they're just going from Guanella again and stuff.
So I'm sure in your, did you say 37 years
Yeah.
and
27.
27 years? I'm sure you've both had a lot of opportunity to wax philosophical about, I think the kinds of questions that come up here is like, who do you view you're serving? And who do you feel you're serving on behalf of? Like, is this a Clear Creek County service? Are you serving local first responders by defraying our costs? Are you serving recreation people? Like, just like, it's kind of a nuanced conversation, right? Around sort of the nature of debt and obligation and anything you want to share to this group about?
It's all intertwined and, you know, we work a lot with Clear Creek EMS and Clear Creek Fire and have historically very well for a really long time. And it's been a good relationship. It's not always that good in other counties. We get kind of swallowed up because we're tiny little fish. And, you know, there's, I don't know what, 40 something volunteer agencies in Jefferson County. So we're just one of them. But in regards to like how it relates to other first responders and then also the people that we're helping in the backcountry, I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of the people complaining, oh, that was really stupid. I don't want my tax dollars going to save somebody who was base jumping off of the black wall on Mount Evans. That was ridiculous and stupid. They shouldn't, you know, they shouldn't be rescued or, you know, they should charge them for the rescue. And we have a pretty hard line that we take on that. And it's a slippery slope when you start blaming people who call you and need your services. And so we tend to be pretty non-judgmental about the people that we rescue, especially publicly. We don't allow any of our members to comment or post pictures from actual missions on social media ever. It never ends well. So
And I think the other thing we do is all the years doing it, the rescues were kind of straightforward. You do it. We walk away a lot of times going, oh, this guy's just an idiot.
Do you ever have lessons learned, you know, to educate the public?
We do it.
Don't wear flip flops up Mount
Yeah.
Bierstadt.
We do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
As mission coordinators, I take that opportunity when they come off the mountain to say, okay, and I do it face to face. It's like, I ran a guide service, a mountain guide for 28 years. So taking teenagers up and it's like, all right, there's a way to do this the right way. But I would tell you that the ones that last, many of you know the McManus search up on Mount Evans, 2014, it went 107 days. We were on the mountain 53 days. That was the father and son from Minnesota. And that one wore the team out. I mean, it's more because you didn't find them. And we had team members were going up every free time and just exercising in that area to see if they could find them. And unbelievably, one group that was working with us and then a private group found the father and the son, two different places within a half an hour of each other. 107 days later, but the snow had melted but those are the ones that you look at when I've been doing work at the state level of the Colorado Search, we're talking to I have a paper lock here, forget what the company, but basically the outdoor recreation in Colorado, which is, I think, for like $70 billion industry. And the volunteers doing backcountry, search, we're the backstop, we're the ones doing it. And if, who's going to do it? If people ask me, are you going to go to New Hampshire? I would say never go to New Hampshire, because if you make a mistake, you're going to get charged. In Colorado, you don't get charged. So, but there are times, and the older I get and the longer I do this, I think my talk with these people is harsher and whatever. Sometimes it's just flat out dumb.
Right,
They do.
right.
And we do have PIOs that will not like make an example of the person, but they'll get on the news the next day and say, hey, just a tip from Alpine Rescue, don't wear flip-flops when you're climbing up the mountain in the springtime,
Period.
Well, yeah. But we do have PIOs that are trained to do that. And they also help out the county sheriffs because they're all very busy, talk about incidents, especially high profile ones like when Clear Creek Canyon gets closed for a rescue. We'll help them out by providing a PIO that can.
Most teams
relay the
don't have a
message.
PIO. We have a team of 6
Mhm.
PIOs, and most teams don't have any. And that's the difference. And I think part of it is we're so close to the media. And the way we did things 20 years ago is we do our thing and go home. Never wanted to be in front of the camera, but we found out that we got to be in front of the camera now because nobody knows who we are. And you go, if I asked everybody on my block about what I do, they think I'm getting paid.
Mhm.
And it's like, nope, I'm doing this off my own dime. So
So is it accurate to say you're a healthy system?
oh yeah,
You're a
now we are.
healthy system.
Now we are.
It's a really important question because we receive a lot of value, right? If you all weren't answering those calls, we'd be paying people too.
Yeah, Virginia Canyon alone, the bike park,
Every week.
every week.
Mm.
It's
And there's a new one, there's supposed to be another bike park up in Conifer, which would be another one for us up Black Mountain. We're going, and what's crazy, at least it happened in Clear Creek, they actually got with EMS and us when they were doing it. The other place don't.
Hmm.
They just wanted, here's our bike park, and then we'll deal with what happens when you have 5 people injured a day and what that means. So it's been great. We actually have 2 of our ATVs parked in
Oh,
Idaho Springs
down the
now.
street.
wow.
Just because of that, hopefully, are they gonna get the access up there?
Yeah, it's getting better, but we're cutting trees to try to get a LC at the hub right now.
So that's the kind of stuff that, tax, and at least those aren't that bad. Going to Idaho Springs is not like going Mount Beerstead on a Saturday in the summer where you've got people looking for leaves and trying to get pictures with the moose up there, But,
Oh, there's another rescue opportunity.
oh yeah.
Great. Well, I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for coming up. I realize you're also volunteering to be here in this room. Close to us. A lot of admiration and gratitude.
I know Aaron was talking with our current field director, Mike, and I think we do it. What I've learned in it is education, because a lot of people don't know. We just did one for all the sergeants and lieutenants in Jeffco. They may have heard the name, but they don't know it. We have a similar presentation, and it's like, oh, okay. And like we say, we get called 24/7, and our people will go every time. it's,
Thank you.
Okay.
yeah,
So, and you are welcome to hang out and hear the rest of this or
I think I was gonna get,
whatever you want to do.
I got to get back to work on my bosses.
I'd get my bus, but I'm my own boss. Thank you guys
Thank you for
much.
having us.
Thank
Really
you.
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
my friend.
Alrighty.
Have a good one.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
You too.
And thank you for what you do.
There was a question about getting access to these slides and we will get these slides out to you all.
They're for everybody's use. Thank you again.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you guys.
All right.
So next we have, we asked for some analysis on sort of who we're serving, resident versus non-resident. I believe this presentation is from Clear Creek EMS.
I've got one.
So Aaron, the floor is yours.
Have two slides again for the sheriff. I will cover those. And it was the. Just making it easy. I don't want to get too complicated. I don't think it's anything. The data that I'm is really good from 2018 to present day. Going beyond that, we were using a different system. We have all that information in a server somewhere, but it's really difficult to get. But I think going back to 2018 really kind of tells the trend, and that's what we're kind of looking for here anyway. So, here's the data points that we're going to look at. We're going to look at call volume. Call volume is specifically responses, whether we transport or not. That's how many times we have to respond to a call. Transport volume, the definition is in the name. That's when we transport. Okay? We don't transport every single time we respond. Sometimes we get there and we realize it wasn't. Talk about potential reimbursed time. We'll mention that when we get there. Time on task. Colton, you asked a question to Alpine about time on task, and we can dial in pretty specific there. And then budgetary distribution. I'll explain. So these are over the last 3 years is what I pulled. Again, if we go back to 2018, it shows the same trend, but it's just easier to look at, I think, when we look at 3 years. These are the actual call volume numbers, but they don't really matter. If you go to the next slide, this shows the trend. See this? So the dark bar is non-resident, and the light bar is resident. So this is specifically response call volume. And if you look over the last 3 years, and again, all the way back to 2018, you can see that non-residents are what we're responding on more and more. That matters. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Transport volume, again, so this is the call volume. This is how many that we transport. These are specific numbers, but the next slide will actually show the trend. So again, the dark bar being non-resident is growing, and the trend continues. Last year in 2024 was the first time in history that we actually transported more non-residents than we did residents. Responding to more for a while, but now we're officially transporting. And that matters. Next slide, because of the business we're doing. So we broke it down a little bit further, and we looked to see when residents call, how often we transfer them. We really don't get paid. And that doesn't matter to our paramedics. Our paramedics don't know what we charge. They don't care that we charge. They just, based on like, if you have an emergency, you're going to get the care that you need. But we're talking about this from like a business perspective, right? So when residents call, 89.5%, 8 out of 10, every county, one for an ambulance, get transported. 62.3% of the non-residents that call get transported. So it matters because we talk about how I just showed you that we're responding to more non-residents, we're transporting more non-residents, but we're less likely from a percentage perspective to transport a non-resident than we are resident. All right, next slide.
So when you transport, that gets charged to their insurance. But if you're just checking on them, they don't pay for that?
Yeah, there are a few, we call them treat and releases. There are a few calls every year where we respond, we can treat on scene, and then we leave. We
Okay,
don't transport them to the hospital, we can charge for that, but it's such a small number that it doesn't
Mm. Thank you.
really have to transport in order to charge someone.
Okay.
And yes, so their insurance, not everyone has insurance, so sometimes it goes to the purchase the person. Time on task hours, I will on these numbers real quick because Alpine was just here, they talked about how they're spending a lot of hours on calls. We're going into the backcountry with them more than ever. Last year was their busiest year on record. They were the 6th busiest in the country last year. So that's pretty quite incredible. And they spent 70% of their time in Clear Creek County, 70% of the time in one of their 3 counties. If we go back to 2022, our paramedics spent 3,864 hours on calls. This time on task is from the second a call gets toned out to us to the second we get back in the county and tell JeffCom we're back in service and available. This doesn't include the time it takes to finish writing that patient care report, to clean the ambulance, to restock the ambulance, to train, to do all of the other things that we have to do. This is very specifically just running that call from start to end. So the amount of work is way more than this. But again, 2022, 3,800 hours, 4,400 hours in 23, and almost 5,400 hours in 24. So our call volume is rising. The amount of time that our paramedics are working is significantly more.
You may want to parenthetically include the full task, including cleaning out the ambulance and restocking it, because that's taking you out of service to do those tasks, right?
No, we're not out of service. If a call drops and things aren't, we're not completely restocked, we're okay. We stock enough on the ambulance that we can run another call
Okay.
to a certain point. I mean, there's a certain point where that does.
Right.
These numbers are really important because they're specifically the numbers that we provide to CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Got it.
This is what they care about. They don't care about sending the ambulance or restocking.
Okay, thank you.
This is what they'll pay.
Yes.
But this shows, and so last year specifically, we spent significantly more time on task with non-residents than we did. So I broke it down, in budgetary distribution. So our 2025 budget is 1.5. If we look at the 2024 time on task hours, and again, if the trend continues, it'll be a little bit worse this year. Worse meaning more hours. I think time on task is the best way to show we were completely reimbursed 100%. And we broke it down to based on the amount of time we spent with these patients who owes us that money, it would actually be non-resident owes a little bit more. Now we don't get that much money. Sales tax didn't quite perform last year. And then we don't get reimbursed 100% of this time. But I think this is the question that was being asked, right? The breakdown between non-resident versus resident. At least give me that time. And I'm happy to answer questions.
So it's definitely, a difference, but it's not a gross difference. I was kind of thinking with our 35,000 vehicles a day that, it could be 10 to 20% more of non-residents. So this is very interesting to me. So thank you.
I think to that point, if you talked about, I'm sure if Aaron pulled the numbers where it was just motor vehicle accidents, sure.
Oh, okay.
It's proportionally non-residents.
Got it.
But because he's also responding to heart attacks, strokes, our median age is 50 years old.
Wow.
So we're aging, which puts more burden on EMS, and yet non-residents number is still passing us, right? So you're talking about trend lines that are going in opposite directions when there's a background behavior of our aging population that should be switching that, right? So there's so much out non-residents overperformance, it's overcompensating for even our population, right?
Okay.
Can I ask, who compiled these statistics?
I did.
Because this is just gold. You know, I love numbers and I always have. I would have been so far off the mark on this. This was really surprising to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had absolutely no idea it was this dramatic. And basically, we are subsidizing visitors to this level. Thank you. That was quite eye-opening.
You're welcome. I did have help from some of the captains. The way you started that, I thought I was in trouble. Yeah. But yeah, and we have a ton more data. Again, I just think that trying to show the resident versus non-resident. I thought breaking it down like this would make it pretty simple. By the way, the resident right there is 48.3%. And that will make it 100%.
Gotcha.
I have a question. So I don't know if you broke it down too on the reimbursement for the resident and non-resident. Do you notice a difference in that?
That's actually, that's pretty difficult to break down. The billing system is pretty annotated. It works
Okay.
well for us. I can do that. That would take me some time.
I was just wondering if more people are more stable, that live here, if you're getting that information or the bill.
We do have that information. Yeah, that's not one of the pieces that I can go into our EPCR system and just ask it to do. That would be like going individually through every single 2024 reimbursement. It can be done like that. But
Let me think about that.
Yeah, I'm asking myself, like, what would we do with that information?
You have a cheap intern that gets.
I can break it down to, commercial insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, private pay, what we wrote off. I can do all of those things really simple. But breaking it down individually to resident versus non-resident
Right.
on our billing side, it doesn't.
And it gets into more of a complicated thing too, that people, are we more insured here or not? Or, that's a whole nother
It
issue.
might just give you background information. If populations are more likely than not to engage in certain behaviors, generally when you aggregate everything, it just comes out in the wash as being the same rate.
Well, and then if you see Alpine Rescue, they're not even billing.
Yeah.
And they're able to function. So if we can figure out a way to get money in. I was thinking like REI, I wonder if they're one of their corporate donors. I mean, they are providing the equipment for these people to go do this stuff, right?
It's a bad joke.
Sell that to REI?
It's not a good joke. It's a bad joke.
You can do the sheriff's office too after this.
I guess your breakdown might help, not so much in resident versus non-resident, but if you are coming up short, it was helpful because I don't want to look at the two numbers, resident and non-resident, and feel like we are subsidizing the non-resident with tax dollars when maybe we're not. If you're coming close to being fully reimbursed, then I don't want to be thinking like, our non-residents are not pulling their weight.
Yeah.
Well, your reimbursement rate is only 30%, right?
Yes, low 30s. Depending on the year, which is pretty good comparatively, based on our payments. And one of the things to think about, I know you mentioned you thought it was going to be like non-resident. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're an interesting community, though. Like if you find another community in Colorado that has a similar population size of 9,500, you can almost delete those dark bars out. Their call volume is going to be half.
Because they're not a resort area or whatever.
Because they don't have 30,000 non-residents.
They don't have an interstate.
Right, right.
So we should, our budget should be significantly lower. We should have way less paramedics. our call volume should be half what it is for a population.
Okay.
It's double what it should be.
Thank you.
So Sheriff, they don't have anyone here, so I'll speak through these slides. Very similar trend. It's also way more extreme of a difference between residents and non-residents. For that percentage, 74% of their calls were non-residents. 78%, 92%, right? So the green bar is the non-resident call volume. The blue bar is the resident call volume, and that line is the percentage. Again, I just picked the same years that Aaron did, trending post-COVID up. The other thing is this is actually undercounting non-residents because we consider everyone in 80439 because of the way their tracking system works to be a resident. But in actuality, only 15% of that zip code lives in Clear Creek County. Right?
50 or 15? Okay.
15. You're just talking like South Evergreen, Floyd Hill. That's it. That is the zip code of Jeffco Evergreen, but we touch it. And unfortunately, their system tracks on zip codes. So we're going to count all of them as residents. So we're undercounting. And even undercounting, we're at 82% in 2024 as non-resident call volume, right?
Wow.
Same exact trend. If we go to the next slide. This is their top 10 call by type. I wanted to add this on here, but I didn't know if it was my information to share publicly or not. Jeffcom provides their breakdown of these for all of their departments. So you can just consider that basically Jeffco's. Their motor vehicle accident rate is less than 5%. Ours is almost 20, right? So that kind of explains like the exposure, relatively speaking, that 70 has, but also to Aaron's group, because we are way off base of a normal police department or sheriff's office on call volume. We disproportionately, by a factor of 4, are on the freeway, on the road, dealing with motor assists, traumatic injuries, falls. Like if you look at this list, you know what they're working on primarily, right? And a lot of it is incidents related to the fact that we have the state of Texas moving through that freeway every year. So, but also just the nature of what's going on up here. So it's very similar to EMS. It's just a more extreme ratio. 20.
Do we think that tracks reasonably to dollars? Can we say 80% of the cost burden of the sheriff's office is non-resident?
I would say patrol, you might be able to make that argument. Confinement, you wouldn't be able to, I don't think. But it would depend. That would be a little bit more complicated, but it probably wouldn't be that extreme, but you could make a similar argument. Questions?
Where do heart attacks fall in here?
Probably 6th person.
Oh, okay.
Traumatic injury?
Traumatic trauma is trauma, like it's usually a wreck or something.
It would actually come out as chest pain. Not as heart attack specifically.
Okay.
And it wouldn't make that list.
Oh, because there aren't that many? Wow.
This is only top 10. The list is actually very long.
And also, it's much more complicated than that. You see breathing problems, 82. Those could be heart attacks.
Okay.
Dispatch doesn't have enough information. They just have to categorize.
Okay.
So also LED.
And it's LED.
It's breaking the subcategories. So it's still big box.
Sorry, Jeremy. It also could be what?
Law enforcement data from dispatch was like big box.
Okay.
Our data breaks down to, this goes all the way to symptoms, ours goes to like fire costs, for example, down to. This is just like a big acceptable size box that generally fits in that category. And that's how they break down the LED.
Thank you.
Three agencies, we've got now 3 sets of numbers for 3 agencies. I feel like I understand why now the numbers are showing up a little bit differently. I think what we were trying to accomplish is being able to like articulate in a way that is like both accurate and simple about our service demand load from the non-resident population. So I'm curious, like, what are people's takeaways? Like, what is the statement that we can make that is like true and kind of simple?
The state owes us a lot of money.
George, this was really informative, you know, both with all three folks that spoke to the statistics today. I was really impressed, and I feel like I can talk from a lot more of an educated kind of point of view, you know. I really did not know that it was to this level of finance that we're going with the visitors. I bring this up because when you look at a Lincoln County out by Lyman, it's similar. They have a small population and they have a large swath on I-70. But they don't really have that many tourist visitors. I don't mean to be cruel, but there's not a lot of folks coming into DIA to go out to Lincoln County to recreate, maybe pheasant hunt or something. But we kind of have this double whammy where Clear Creek County absolutely is a destination, and we've got a large swath of I-70. But with that draw for people to come up here and recreate, and boy, is that showing up in our numbers. I mean, when the sheriff's department is showing things like 4 times what you would expect. That's really saying.
Well, the other thing to add to that is what they're doing. You go to recreate in Lincoln County. Okay, you might be pheasant hunting.
Right.
It's flat,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree.
Crazy weather storms didn't have multiple funnel.
Slower.
Here is people, not only are they coming here, they're coming here to do dangerous things.
they are.
Climb, ski, mountain bike,
Lose their mind.
On a highway.
drive on 70.
Oh, yeah.
So it's both of those things.
Okay. That I think gets us right into talking about, I mean, my takeaway is we need tax proposal tools that, you know, ask of our visitors to help pay. And we've always looked at sales tax as that solution. Colton has been asking some questions that might frustrate all of you. Because, you know, reality is tough. So Colton, that's my segue into your presentation.
Okay, so what I wanted to do is, since I've gotten here, I've heard we've talked a lot about sales tax being a primarily tourist-based revenue. And it is directly, but it's not to the extent that you would think. Especially when you're talking countywide. Now, for like Idaho Springs, Georgetown, yes, it's pretty lopsided, but for the county, it's not. Because the unincorporated areas particularly don't have a lot of businesses, and the ones that they do have don't pay sales tax. And there's a lot of consuming going on in those unincorporated areas online, which pays county sales tax. So that has changed a lot. So what I did was I built a model that modeled who's paying what for all these different proposals, and who they are and what their particular situation is, because that changes a lot of the revenue generated by those people. So just some numbers here. Our assessed value is 338 million for the land in the county, plus all the private property. This is our property tax. This is down 42% since 2015. This is the Henderson drop off. It's that number, right? Sales tax revenue, 2.5 to 2.8 million per percent. 8 to 19% of that comes from food. And the reason that's important is the state doesn't tax food, but we do. We'll get into the definition of what a grocery is from a sales tax perspective in the next line, but it constitutes a pretty large portion of our sales tax income. Having said that, it's gone down every year. And it's really volatile because, not because the amount that people spend on groceries changes, because it doesn't, it's actually pretty fixed. It's that as a ratio of that sales tax number that's very volatile, it changes. So in good years, good from a revenue perspective, it's a lower number because restaurant sales, tourist sales are generating a huge, much more larger amount of that total number. In bad years, it's a very big number. Like if you go back to the recession, it's like 25% of was food because you got to buy it. You can't not eat, right? And it's groceries. So the public safety tax at 2% is 5 million to 5.6 million with food, 2.5 to 4.75 million without food. We exempt food from that tax. Next slide.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, the 2% public safety tax revenue?
Hmm?
You said
It's
5
million to 5.6 if we include groceries.
right?
If we don't include groceries, it goes down.
Okay, but to 4.25 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
So it's a range because sales tax is very volatile, especially here. So here's some definitions we're gonna have to go through. I'll try not to bore everyone to death on this, but it's important to understand because it's how people actually behave, right? Marginal propensity to consume is the amount of your disposable income that you spend on stuff. The richer you are, the less percentage of your income you spend on things because you have the luxury of saving more money, right? The poorer you are, the more you spend on, especially if food is tax eligible. Tax exempt food, these are raw groceries. And what I mean by that is if I sell you bread, lettuce, cheese, mayonnaise, and meat individually, and you make a sandwich at home, that's tax exempt according to the state. But if I sell you the sandwich all put together, that's taxable food, right? It's not ready to eat. It is raw ingredients. Now, this is a little weird with really processed food, but as a general rule, if you have to do something yourself to be able to eat it, and it's not a raw vegetable or fruit, it's tax exempt from the state. An important thing to remember is the state exempts this. Most city and counties do too. We don't. Taxable food, the only thing that's weird here is that the state considers candy and soda a taxable food, even if you're buying it in the raw state. So that is taxable. Next slide. Okay, so the assumptions on the model. Sales taxes increased with modeled at 2%. Groceries are taxable in this county. 100% of grocery spending is happening within the county, but only 50% of the other taxable spending is happening within the county. And the reason we made this assumption is because we have things you can't buy here. Tires, bars, toilets, wood, underwear, right? There are things that you cannot buy in a store in this county, right? So we can't assume 100% of this consumption happens in the county. This also is a very conservative estimate, right? And the point of this is to show that sales taxes are actually quite expensive for people who live here. Because if you think about your income, if you spend 30% of your disposable income on rent, the other 70% is taxable on sales tax. That's a much bigger portion of people's budgets than their home, right? Generally speaking. Now, if you're house poor, that changes, and we'll get into that. But
And the 100% grocery spending, I thought when we chatted the other day, you were saying a lot of people go to Walmart.
they do. That's a separate conversation. For the
Okay.
point of the model, we are worried about the person who buys their groceries here.
Okay,
If
thank
they
you.
don't buy their groceries here, this doesn't affect them,
Okay, got it.
right?
Yep, yep.
And that's another part of the larger strategic conversation about this is displacing those buyers into a different county.
Is it safe to say part of what's behind that is it's a meaningful policy goal that people do buy their
Yes,
food here?
that's the other thing, right? But if they don't, grocery spending is very habitual, right? You see in all of the corporate modeling when it comes to grocery sales, people have their grocery store, they go to that grocery store. They don't like go randomly to other places a lot, right? When you're talking about other spending, it's not as like habitual, right? The whole point of a grocery store is to get that customer to come 50 times a year, right? Not come once. And because that's largely not how they make their money. The other property tax assumptions we're gonna talk about, we have the residential assessment rate, the commercial assessment rate. The mill is modeled at 15 mills. And the reason it was 15 is because that's the same amount of revenue as 2% sales tax. Okay? So that's a big mill increase. That would bring our county general mill increase from 35 to 50, right? Residential exemption is 55,000. And then the senior exemption, we do have a senior model in here because we do have a lot of those people in our community. 50% of the first 200,000, if they qualify, they are exempt from that sales tax.
And that's a
property tax.
income-based
Yes, it's income based too. There's actually a lot of qualifications for that.
Okay.
Okay, so the other thing we're gonna talk about spending. When we talk about people's marginal propensity to consume, that's essentially their saving rate. People save more the wealthier they get, so they spend less money as a ratio of their income on consumable things, the wealthier they get. So we start at 95%, which is actually a pretty generous consumption because most people I know who make less than $50,000 don't save anything. And then it goes to 80% for people who make more than 200,000 a year. Same thing with how much of the ratio they spend on groceries. Grocery spending is not linear, as in you don't spend 10% of your income no matter how much you make. You make past a certain amount of money, and groceries, you just can't find ways to spend more money on them, right? They do have a ceiling. Even if you're going to Whole Foods and stuff, it rarely keeps up with how fast people, because you can only eat so much, right? So as a percentage of their income, they spend less, the higher the income they get. All right. We talked about the 50%, why that assumption was made. Because we have certain things you can't buy here, which forces some spending naturally down the hill. Next slide. Okay, so this is the guts of what this is. There's 5 demographics here. A family of 4 at a medium income home in this county, $500,000, $90K worth of income. A single elderly person on 75% median home, which means their home is worth 75% of the median value, right? 45K income, which is traditional Social Security income, plus they have the senior exemption on their property. A wealthy couple, 200% median home. This is $1 million home, 150K income. Single adult with 2 kids, median home, lower income. This is a house poor person. And then a restaurant, right, with $5 million of revenue in a $2 million building. Okay. The first column is the amount they will spend on that property tax increase, depending on what kind of home they have. And the percentage next to it is the percentage of their disposable income that will be hit by this property tax increase. So people who have a lot of money locked up in their house, family of 4, 90,000, adult with 2 kids in a median family home with 75K, spend 0.7% or 0.9%, but $447 is what a 15 mil property tax increase will cost them. The next one is the sales tax generated by their spending on groceries. And the next column after that is on other purchases. The percentages are all there. And then the total sales tax increase burden. In every case, sales tax will cost them more money at 2%, right? If you include groceries. If you don't include groceries, it's a more mixed bag, right? The reason this is because the vast majority of our revenue from property tax comes from commercial properties, not residents, right? Residents lose money for counties every single house, right? Between the roads and everything else, it never pays for itself, right? What makes that up is the commercial properties. So when people say tourists pay sales tax, the reason Bojo's pulls in $15 million a year in revenue is not residents of this county, it's tourists. And then they turn around and pay their property tax. So tourists pay the property tax too. They're the ones keeping the commercial people in business, right? So it's not a direct payment, but it is essentially tourists paying property tax, right? Because the commercial properties assessed at 28% pay much higher than 6.7% of your home value, right? So the important thing is that this is not, if you're talking about the burden on the people who live here, this is not that easy. This is not that straight shot of you don't pay, because online ordering has changed that dynamic immensely. You have sales tax every single time. In different parts of the county, you're talking about 50, 60, 70% people's consumption happens online, right? It's how they buy their toilet paper. It's how they buy their underwear. It's how they buy all those things that you can't walk into a store in here and buy, right? I've been doing some calling to FedEx and UPS. The east side of the county is particularly bad about this, but they have whole trucks just for Floyd Hill. That's how much consumption is happening just online. So because we see these more updated numbers, sales tax is generally more expensive than those are for people, right, who live here, right? So it's something that decision makers need to consider, that yes, tourists do pay sales tax, but we have a larger economic issue here of that we do not capture enough revenue from that liability coming off 70 in general, and that's sales tax, right? So this is largely reflective of the larger kind of sticky problem that we have, is we have a lot of people here recreating and not consuming at all in the county. And that's reflected in the fact that these sales tax burdens will hit the people who live here, right? The other thing I want to talk about is groceries. So I did a comparison between the Safeway in Idaho Springs and the El Rancho Walmart. And you see, once you start taxing groceries and you bring volume down, groceries are a numbers game, right? If you don't have volume, you have to increase prices, which then drops your volume even more, which then makes you increase prices more. The other problem is more than 50% of the households in this county live within 20 minutes of that Walmart, okay? If you look at our counts, the Walmart, the Safeway in Idaho Springs has 256,000 visits a year from people who live in this county, 52% of their customer base. The other 30-something percent of their customer base is Gilpin, right? So you're largely talking about people who are here, okay? Idaho Springs is obviously the biggest percentage of that, but then Georgetown, Dumont, Empire, Evergreen, Silver Plume, okay? Those zip codes. The Walmart, it's 209,000 visitors from our county, but that's only 14% of their customer base. Because they do way more business than we do, right? Than that Idaho Springs Walmart, Idaho Springs Safeway does. Every number in red, more people from those zip codes in our county shop there than the Safeway, right? So the concerning part is Georgetown. They're passing the Walmart they're passing the Safeway to go to the Walmart. 26,000 people from Georgetown went to the Walmart, 26,000 trips from people who live in Georgetown went to the Walmart. Only 22,000 went to the Safeway, right? Same thing with Evergreen, obviously. Empire is pretty close. Silver Plume somehow is almost 60% more people. Trips from Silver Plume went to the Walmart. They're passing it. It's a 40-minute drive, right? So that shows you how much price does matter. And this trend has been year over year over year over year. This Walmart is cannibalizing their customer base. 1, they don't tax food. 2, they're cheaper. 3, you can buy underwear there. And it's not really that far. And the problem with that is, if you've seen the corporate merger documents between Albertsons and Safeway, Albertsons and King Soopers, that Safeway is on that list to be turned off.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right? So that's why, is because this is a space game. And we already have a huge portion of our county going to the Walmart. And any investor who looks at it is going to say, why is this Safeway even open? Right? I think it provides a valuable service to this community who can't move, people who don't have that kind of mobility. But the reality is year over year over year, that Walmart is draining customers from the Safeway, right? And anything you do to increase Safeway's cost is going to accelerate that trend, right? So it is something to be concerned about. You go to the next slide. These are the heat maps. Look at the Safeway. Again, it's Gilpin and us. If you look at that, they're spreading their profits across the entire, all of Evergreen, our county, Gilpin County, all the Front Range, right? So that's an issue, right, that we need to be cognizant of, is that when you're talking about a numbers game, which one of those businesses do you feel more confident in, right?
And so the concern you're trying to articulate here, right, is that a 2% sales tax increase inside that Safeway may not play out well.
No, not for the Safeway. Because the problem is we're playing on margin here, right? We're talking 400,000 to 800,000, maybe even potentially $1 million worth of revenue off that 2% trees inside that Safeway. If it puts it Safeway out of business, it's zero. Right? Because that's the only place that really gets any money off of groceries in this county. There's a little bit at Georgetown Market, there's a little bit here and there, but it is not that, you'll be pushing the whole county into Jeffco to do grocery shopping.
I just have a comparison. I'm probably like a lot of us. I'm a creature of habit. Usually buy the same things at the grocery store every week. I constantly go to King Super in Evergreen, and one week I didn't feel like going over there, and I went to Safeway and pretty much bought the same stuff, and it was $100 more than the King Super El Rancho.
Wow.
So that's why I skip it.
It's a volume game because they get about the Safeway in Idaho Springs gets about 500,000 visits a year. That's people walking in the door and walking out. The King Super in Bergen Park does 1 million. So if they have to make $1 on everything, they have to make 50% less than that to stay even at King Supers. And that's Walmart's game, man. They'll sell you everything for a quarter of a profit because they're going to sell it to 2 million people, right? So people are price sensitive. We have people driving past that Safeway, Beth being one of them, right? To go shop at that Walmart because people do make decisions off of that over time, right? And it is something to be concerned about because that is an anchor of Idaho Springs and, then it will be Gilpin and Clear Creek with no grocery store.
Wow.
So it is something to worry about. It's not the most important thing ever, but wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't bringing this concern to this group when you're talking about your tax options here. So
I would be curious when the Safeway, everybody in town used to shop at the Safeway, and then the quality also went just down. You can go buy moldy cheese today. You can buy, they just stopped putting money into the store at least 10 years ago.
Sure.
I see all my neighbors at King Supers.
Yeah.
You get fresher. You can check out quicker. You don't have to deal with the tourists, the lines down the aisles. I think that Safeway's just had multiple things that have
and it could be
hit it.
it could be because they can't afford to recycle stuff because they don't get the volume, which then makes them not get the volume. You're talking about a death cycle, right?
Yeah, you can go in there some days in bed because now they're relying on the non-residents to go in there and purchase their things.
Really what their core customer base, if I'm being real, based on the movement data, is Gilpin. That is their most loyal because that Walmart is an hour, right, from them. So people are making a decision based on proximity in Gilpin County to prioritize that Safeway. But outside of Idaho Springs and Gilpin, very few of the rest of the county uses this.
And I think all Safeways are more expensive too.
Generally speaking, yes, but if it's not backed up by quality, it's hard to sell it.
Right.
So I asked, Colton kind of gave me a heads up that these numbers were going to be surprising about the sort of the impact to an individual, to a family of a sales tax versus property tax. That's why I asked him to make a guess on what it looks like when we take food out. And I'm curious how the room feels about this. My takeaway is that we really have two options. We have a property tax option, and we have sales tax option that also exempts food from the county collection. I don't think a 2% sales tax hike that includes food is a viable pathway. I'm just curious, do other people have other thoughts?
I have a question. And I think you've answered this before, but I forgot your answer. if you did a 2% sales tax hike, can you exempt food from that additional 2%, or does it have to be across the board?
It's actually a Peter question.
Okay.
I actually don't know.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Literally.
Sales. Sorry. If we did do a 2% sales tax increase, can we exempt food from that 2% increase? And then keep the status quo for the other taxes for food?
So I'm trying to find that answer.
Thank you.
I will tell you that I'll just leave it
I mean, it doesn't help the death spiral currently going on, but I was just curious if we could.
I will tell you my thought is that we cannot that
Yeah.
we'll likely have to apply across the board at that point because the
Okay.
Department of Revenue is going to, collect and then administer accordingly. So,
Okay.
but I'm looking for an answer.
Yeah.
$1 million.
I know.
$1
I know.
Hit to revenue if we exempt the existing 2.65%
Right.
from sales, from food.
Right.
So it's a $1 million cost to a $5 million gain.
Well, if you include it in the 2%, it's 1.5, 1.6 million for a $5 million gain. Because then you would also take it off of the 2% too.
Okay, so if you raise it 2%, you would gain 5 million. And if you exempt food, you'd lose, so
Well,
it's a 4
you would
million?
only gain 4.25 if you exempted food, and then if that is the case, we would then need to take the other million off from the existing stack that's no longer getting collected. So it ends up being like a $1.75 million hit to exempt food. Because if you have to do the whole thing, basically if you add 2%, your sales tax is now 4.65%, right? You'd have to exempt food off all that. And that would be, 1.8 million, probably 1.7 million.
I'd be curious what the municipalities have to say about that.
Well, we're already amongst the highest in the state. And I will tell you, there was this concern when we went twice to the voters for the 1 cent water and sewer. And the second time it passed overwhelmingly. Folks got the fact that our visitors are paying the overwhelming bulk of our sales tax. And I know there would be concern, but I have to weigh that against the inadequate funding that we have, especially for our emergency services. And I think as much as I never would wish ill on anyone, when you see what's happened in Boulder County with the loss of 1,100 homes and more recently on Maui, I think it really has pushed this front and center with a lot of homeowners, renters alike that feel that we are very vulnerable, especially against, wind-driven events. And when it's a warm day and the wind is blowing, it's just another reminder that the last thing you'd want to see is one careless cigarette and we're on national news. So I'm sorry to get a little long-winded, but I think that the overall sentiment would be to support it despite nobody really liking.
Wait a minute, are you supporting sales tax or property tax?
Yeah, I think it would be, sales tax would be an easier sell for the same reason that we were able to sell that 1% for water and sewer. It's something that our visitors do consume, and it's a way that they can participate without being overly burdensome on the residents. I see this as being the same way. The documentation shared with us today about it being, more than $1.8 million that we shell out as a community, countywide, for visitors really versus locals. I think that there should be some way for those visitors to help participate in that financially. And I just think my guess is the sales tax is the lesser of say a 15 mil increase. And if someone were to suggest it needed to be a hybrid, I get it. But I just think if I were to choose one or the other, it would be the sales tax.
So if we dropped food to save Safeway, and they're probably gonna close it in a few years anyway, but, you know, just for argument's sake, what if we made a higher sales tax on everything else exempting food?
You'd have to, we're that 2% is the statutory limit for public safety sales tax.
Oh,
So you can't go higher. And
Huh.
if you did, it's like all or nothing, right? There's no graduated. You would need excise tax authority to do that.
Raise our general sales tax.
Well, yeah, I know, but it applies to all taxable goods evenly. You can't say it's either you're exempt and it's zero, or you're paying the full load. You can't say it's an extra 5% for this kind of thing.
But not for this.
Well, no, what I thought what we were discussing before was exempting food.
You can, but it's again, it's an all or nothing, right? It's all food, it's zero.
Yeah. No. I'm retracting what I was suggesting before because you said probably not. But if we exempt food across the board, we're still only limited to a 2% increase.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
For the public safety tax.
If you exempt the food, then does the 2% sales tax that we're statutorily limited to, does that meet the funding need for public safety?
Doesn't sound like
I
it.
mean,
Go ahead. I'll offer my thoughts on that. I don't think there's a single ballot measure that is going to meet the needs of the multiple organizations that have needs. I think the way I'm looking at this is how can we come up with a sort of first out of the gate ballot measure that gets something to all of us? Right, as in fire, sheriff, and EMS. And then in the knowledge that individually, like fire is still going to need a mill increase at some point if we get, unless. Same with Clear Creek County's general fund. This is not going to solve Clear Creek County's general fund's problem, even if we get all 2% and we don't exempt food. So I think what we're trying to do is figure out what's the solid first step that we can take that really kind of helps us all. And then figure out what successive ballot measures look like down the road. The alternative would be for us to this is one of the things about a property tax approach, right? Is that we all have to run separate measures. The Board of County Commissioners can run a property tax for the ESGID. We would have to run a separate property tax for our general fund. If those are on the same ballot at the same time, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
No.
Right. And so, I guess that's where my head is at is the ballot measure that I think meets muster is one that serves us all, that has flexibility to serve multiple agencies. And I think that's a public safety sales tax that exempts food.
Lynette, what would that make Georgetown sales tax if it was an additional 2%?
So we're right up there with Idaho Springs.
No, I thought you were more than Idaho Springs.
We're about the same.
yeah, I think those are the same.
So like 11% or what would it be?
Exact, I don't remember.
I think you're 10A, aren't you?
I've got the form up.
10.55 right now.
Are they? Okay.
I think that's what Empire is in.
1.55.
Yeah, we're the exact same as Idaho Springs and you're very close.
There's
Ken.
not that much difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That difference is not what worth worrying about, but we're equally high when it comes to trying to get the business community to defend the
Right.
sales tax level. People are
I've talked to business owners and they're pretty upset in Georgetown in
Yeah.
particular. And Main Street, Idaho Springs, not Main Street, but Minor
Minor.
Street. But again, what I was saying before, if we can have this public relations campaign about 35,000 cars a day in a little tiny county and we need the money to help protect you while you're visiting or something, but.
I mean, I'm seeing, I think eventually, I don't see the sales tax, the public safety tax funding it completely. So we are talking eventually about some kind of hybrid. And I think the public safety tax that is on purchases is it's a difficult sell, but it does get more involvement and it helps the community to feel like our visitors are accepting and taking on some of the burden. But I also think you can push a public relations campaign for your property is worth this and we need to protect it. So we've got fire, police, and EMS all trying to protect your property. We're gonna have to look at mill levy increase in order to do that. And it is supplemented by the public safety tax, but I don't think either one can do it alone.
Yeah, that was
No,
well said.
it's not
Lynette.
freestanding. You're right.
What other thoughts? I mean, yeah, Empire?
Yeah,
Go
for it.
We're the disadvantaged community. It's gonna be hard no matter what. I'm still dwelling on the grocery store. One of our board members, when they started, said, we're a food desert. How do we fix that? We're kind of going the opposite direction. I don't know how you stop the bleeding. I really don't. If we do, and as you said, we could do something to try to help save Safeway, and it might still close in a couple of years anyway. So if we give up that sale, that helps the grocery store, and then we lose it anyway. I don't know, maybe Safeway has its own problems. It doesn't matter what we do, but if we still have the sales tax, it makes it hard for another grocery store to come in and see a profit margin coming into Clear Creek County. Don't have a lot of answers, but it might be an easier sell to say, we need to ask for this 2%, but we're actually not going to tax food anymore. That helps the locals. It doesn't really help us with the numbers, but that's probably an easier sell. Because we're literally driving something away that people need, and it's getting worse and worse. I don't know how you sell that. I don't know how you sell that.
And really high tech foods, the grocery store is the most extreme example because it is very volume based. We don't have a hardware store, right? Again, like our proximity to Jeffco and how big those stores are, and how small our population is a real problem. The other thing is that a third of our county basically consumes exclusively. They're not ordering stuff online because of how close they are, right? And so any kind of increase in in sales tax rates will probably push that across the board, not just groceries, but because that is a core need of people, I think it's the most important thing to talk about.
So you're saying it behooves us to do what we can to keep that for the people who do use it?
What I'm saying is that none of these decisions are going to be easy.
No.
Every single one of them has a cost, but we are already seeing a lot of our brick and mortar businesses, our businesses that employ people, get displaced down the hill because it isn't that far, right?
Right.
And so I'm just concerned about it when we're talking about sales tax increases, because the nice thing about property taxes is the most special and amazing thing about this county is the land.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're taxing. It's the land and the property on, right? You can bypass sales tax, right? I could do all of my shopping, 100% of it down the hill, less, right? So it does have a natural effect of making sure everyone is contributing, not people who have the resources to game the system, because high sales tax rates and people who are mobility limited have less ability to play games with sales tax, right?
Right.
Because they can't go anywhere. But if they can,
they will.
I can just do all my shopping in Jeffco, not contribute anything to EMS or the fire department or anything, and still live here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I have a property tax mill, I can't get out of it, right?
Right.
So the other thing is with the assessment rate on vacant land is 28%, right? And we have a lot of that, a lot of vacant land, right? And so we're making sure that those absentee owners, those trusts, those investors who are buying up property and sitting on it for 100 years are paying too, right?
And this isn't completely reliant on a largely optional activity, which is, do I consume anything in this county? Because we know from our tourist data that our tourists don't, right? They're largely the ones bypassing that system. It is our residents who pay sales tax, right? When you talk about the county as a whole. Now, Navajo Springs, it's not that extreme because they are a tourist destination, but living in unincorporated.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that is not how people live up there, right?
No.
So, it's complicated, right? And I just wanted to add a whole bunch of complication and frustration into this meeting.
Well, it's something we have to be aware
I
of.
want you to be aware,
Yeah.
right, that it isn't that clean.
Yeah.
Because we're all responsible for the consequences of our decisions, right? And these are potential consequences.
But I also think you have to realize by increasing what people are paying on their property taxes, a lot of them are barely squeaking by now. You kick it up to 15%, you're gonna have more unhoused than we know what to do with because they're gonna lose this property.
That's why I put the matrix together to show you how much it would cost, because that is true, right? People on fixed incomes, especially. It's not an easy thing.
Landlords are gonna pitch from state. Affordable housing goes up too. If the levy's going up, they pass that on to the folks that they're leasing or
tenants.
renting. Yeah.
I think we're getting the conversation to most residential property, we're not talking like $2,000 a year. Talking $400 and $500 a year in that range.
Agreed.
Right, for property taxes, and storage here, most of the neighbors drastically lower. I know every struggle, so I'm not saying it's not the reality, but as a community, we've really kind of had a free ride since 1989. And I'm sorry.
This is true.
The screeching end and the bus wreck and all that other stuff. But the reality of it is we have to fund these services. Because I'll tell you right now, the expectation on our services collectively is increasing every day. What the public expects us to do is it's been increasing. We're 4 or 5% this year over last year. We're up every year. And the call types reflect the desire of the community. Like we're doing more lockouts than we've ever done. We lose tow companies in the community, guess what? They call 911. So I think the reality that we're facing is we're not talking like I'm gonna have you spend thousands of dollars additional per month. We're talking incremental, and I've had the same conversation with an individual who works for a large fire department in the metro area that went, show me what it's gonna cost me in sales tax versus show it cost me my property tax, whichever is lower, whichever one is lower, the one else neither. Whichever one is lower is the one I'll support. Valid point. I would rather spend $500 a year on property tax than $600 to $700 a year on sales tax, personally.
Right, because the argument is, fire risk is real.
Yes.
And everybody knows that right now because of the Marshall Fire, for example, and because of insurance companies dropping our insurance. And I think it's an easier sell to increase the mill levy than with all the information about sales tax and the fact that it's not just tourists. That was a very valid point.
And let me clarify, our 1 cent sales tax on water and sewer, it was a much easier sell because it's not the same as the rest of the county. We all know it, and I openly admit that overwhelmingly the visitors are paying the sales tax here in Idaho Springs. But I'd be the first to confess that, in unincorporated, of course, that's not the case at all. So, it probably, that was a much easier sell in this particular municipality. But I think that we're going to stand with whatever the group thinks we can do to fix this.
But isn't it a fair statement to say we actually need both?
If you need both, I just think this is where we have to adjust maybe what those percentages are.
It's a matter of what we do first.
Well, I'm just looking at what will sell, what you can get them to approve.
No levy, then that makes sense. Said the last two meetings.
Yep.
Maybe it's a 1% increase in sales tax that includes food. Cause I hate to see us say non-include food, that's a huge hit to the county already. That's just like,
Yeah.
hey, we're really sorry that we burned your shed down yesterday, but by the way, we lit your house on fire.
Yeah.
My bad. I might want to take care of that. Oh, wait, that's what we're talking about, fire protection. So I think it's gonna have to be a mix, but we've been saying that for 7 years now. So I think it's gonna have to be a mix, and that could be a mix, any kind of mix, right? So that countywide, 1% county sales tax makes sense, and the municipality do something different. I think you can intermix that. And I think when we talk to businesses, I love businesses, it's like, higher sales tax is gonna kill my business. Okay. I don't know, when's the last time you went to a restaurant, hey, what's your sales tax rate?
Never.
I don't do it, I'm trying to travel all over the US.
Yeah.
But we don't do that, but the business owner swears that's the case, and we say, okay, would you rather have property tax? No, I don't want property tax either, I want to pay 28%. You don't understand. Well, we have to have that honest conversation. It's gonna have to come from somewhere. And collectively, we need to decide where the somewhere is. And then have those hard conversations with the business owner, because as a business owner personally, I would rather have sales tax get paid by the person I'm doing business with than come out of my bottom line. That's just as a business owner. It's direct payment, they take care of it. I file my taxes, I file my information with the state every month, and I cut them a check, it's great, it doesn't cost me anything, it costs me my time. So I think that's where that blend comes in, some of the business owners that are blaming high sales tax of why they're not doing well in business. I think there's a whole bunch of factors.
And Jeremy, if I could just pile on that, with the 1% street improvement fund, 1 cent water and sewer sales tax increase, we have had significant upswing in sales, despite 1 or 2% being added on. And nope, I mean, the statistics just bear that out. So I agree with you on the human factor of how many of us, maybe we're out recreating, know that in Orlando, we paid a 14% tourist tax on our. I mean, you know, you're not doing that. And I'm not going to pick on any one particular business, but I think we've all frequented at least a couple of them in downtown Idaho Springs that also passed like a 3% back of the house fee. Okay. But again, I would suggest if you talk to those businesses, it's actually up, you know, despite that. So, yeah, I think we do hear a lot of concern about being amongst or tied right there with the very highest in sales tax. But I just think, you know, when you're trying to thread this needle of how do we pay for things, and there's an opportunity for visitors to make it more equitable. And maybe it is a hybrid, maybe it's 1% and 7.5% mill increase. But I think folks get it, that we've had it. We've been lucky. We've had it good for a long time, but we've dodged a lot of bullets, and sooner or later it's going to catch up with us.
I want to add maybe just like another dynamic to this sales tax and this food conversation. Jeremy, you got me thinking because you're talking about the county collections. And I just want to share, exempting food from our sales tax base has been a goal of mine since I got elected. It's not like much of a reality because of our fiscal challenges, but I believe that, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, it's a mistake to tax someone a loaf of bread to do anything for them, regardless of what you're going to do to them for them with that dollar. It's a mistake to tax them on a loaf of bread. They need that to survive. In this column right here, we can see what people are paying right now on our county sales tax today. We've got a single adult with 2 kids and a medium home, $200 last year, almost $200 on sales tax last year.
Well, that's just the 2%.
That's
not
right.
2.65.
So if we increase the sales tax rate 2% and exempt food from the whole stack, their new taxes is the third column minus the second column, basically, right? So like, I want to point that out to us all because we spend a lot of time talking about how to help people afford childcare, how to help people afford housing, et cetera, reducing their tax burden on their most essential items is another way to do that. And so I just kind of want to introduce that perspective into this. The next steps that make sense to me is for us to talk about what a sales tax that exempts food, how much that really generates, and where that leaves the county, what exempting food, like the needs of, like right now, we landed on an amount that the fire department would need within that would have to change, and just sort of remodel around what a food exemption looks like. I think another next step would be to show some examples of the scenarios around a property tax approach, so that we can just kind of continue to toy with these alternatives. Does that seem like a reasonable?
Okay, so my understanding is that you're not going to get voters to vote both for a sales tax increase and a mill levy, correct?
I don't
Have
think
to
so on the
do
same.
one or the other?
Not on the same ballot.
It's about sequencing successive years. Does that seem, what's missing from next steps there?
Here's a basic Colton question. If we increased property taxes, would we net more money? Or if we increase sales tax?
These are modeled to be the same. So a 15 mil general government increase will generate approximately the same amount of money as a 2% sales tax with food.
But one's more stable than the other.
One is more stable.
Yeah.
Property taxes are more stable. And again, the majority of your property tax revenue is generated by your commercial businesses, right? Because they get assessed at a much higher rate, or your industrial, or your agriculture, or your vacant land, people's homes, which is why that matrix is so lopsided, right? Property tax is clearly the higher burden on the individual household if they consume in the county, right? Then property, because the assessment rate is so low, 6.7% compared to 28%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the bottom one, the commercial one, 15 mil increase in the $2 million building is $5,200 or $5,800, right? But if you give them 2% of sales tax, they generate $100,000 in revenue, right? They generate that revenue from selling $5 million worth of revenue at an extra 2%, right? So your commercial industries in both cases are where your taxes come from, right? Not your residential millage rate, because the assessment rate is so low, right?
That's why low income is at zero. Property.
So, and sales tax generally hurts people with less ability to move more, right? Or vary their consumption or whatever. Because way more of their income is spent on clothes.
Right.
Property tax is a little bit more equitable. Now, that's not the case for people who are extremely underwater in their homes. But again, it's a complicated thing, right? But property tax is way more consistent. And again, it correctly monetizes the most valuable thing in the county, which is the land, right? Not the traffic. Unless we do a better job getting people off the freeway. Right? But right now, the reality is that consuming in the county with the changes to the way the online sales tax works really does have households paying a lot. Because that sales tax will hit them every time they order anything online, right?
Okay, I'm gonna move us along. We've got two more things on the agenda. Brian, you're gonna get the survey update after we schedule our annual meeting.
Going on the week. We'll have a final version of the survey, and by the end of this week, it'll probably be in the mailboxes the following week.
I'm sorry. Let me, Kelly, you had raised your hand. You had something to say, and I told you I was gonna get to you, and then I forgot.
I withdraw
You withdraw your thought.
do stuff with numbers on my side.
Okay.
Maybe answer my question.
Okay. Thank you. So then we threw this on last second. We realized we all owe each other a joint meeting to hear the annual report from the fire authority per our new IGA. It's probably the right setting to get that on the calendar. Do you all know what I'm referring to?
Yep.
Okay.
Just being me.
And I think per the IGA, it's supposed to be, the meeting is supposed to be in June, right?
No, I think it's before June 1st.
So the meeting is supposed to be in May.
Yes.
Okay. Jeremy, I know you've been cranking away on that. My first question is this an evening meeting? So that our, like, the members of our municipal boards can be there, et cetera?
I think Andy and I probably could do either way.
Yeah, but it needs to be, I mean, many on my board couldn't make it during the day,
Okay.
so.
True. So we're looking at the evening. I'm gonna ask that it not be the last week in May. May 21st doesn't work. The 20th and the 22nd work for me.
Meeting on the 20th.
20th does not work for you. The 15th also works for me. So 22nd, 15th, I'm just throwing out dates. Other people are welcome to throw out dates as well.
Of the town hall, the 15th.
We have a town hall the 15th.
Are we talking about May or June?
I was talking about May.
May or town hall's the 12th in St. Mary's, I believe.
And we have the Leslie Smith, Dylan Roberts. town
Oh,
hall.
yep. Thank you.
Ah.
Legislative town hall. Be there or be square. May 15th. So May 22nd, anybody have a conflict on May 22nd?
Just to confirm, this is a BOCC meeting or a fire authority meeting?
It's the joint.
The 22nd looks good for me. How about you?
I bring a copy of the IGA with me, but it's the language that's in the IGA that documents there's going to be a joint meeting of all the parties to the IGA with the board.
With the board.
A joint meeting of the jurisdiction.
Which I think we called it a joint meeting or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm free on the 22nd.
Georgia,
Yeah.
we're good on the 22nd. May.
Call it a fire authority board meeting.
Oh, so that's right for noticing and so forth.
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
Yeah,
That's the
you're-
reason I was asking was kind of who chairs that meeting.
So we make the fire authority meeting for May 22nd.
We haven't set it out.
We could, I mean, who's on the fire authority board with me? We have some business that we could get you on May if we had a meeting for ourselves.
And then have a separate one.
And then have a separate one. We don't, I'm always trying to pile on to people. We don't have to.
It's a board meeting at 6 and we have the public meeting just meeting at 7 without making changes for the.
How long do you think that presentation will take? Curious, an hour? That's not terrible.
Sorry.
So are we talking 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock?
We don't have much to talk about.
So what time are we starting?
22nd. Is you all know how to get your colleagues there and what times are good for them better than I do. What's the right starting time for your colleagues?
They're saying 6. I think we can make that work. And then 7 for the joint meeting. Is that what I'm understanding?
Can we do that in Idaho Springs, like right here versus in Georgetown?
This room is not big enough, I don't think.
No.
So you're talking about doing both meetings the same night?
Yeah.
Jeremy proposed that. I have mixed feelings.
What are the two meetings?
We have a meeting of the board of the fire authority the night before.
as well as the joint.
It's just a question of if we think
Meeting.
for that fire authority meeting in an hour. My instinct.
Sometimes do that with our meetings. It seems to work.
Oh, yeah.
You can have a public.
I think so.
And then go right into a regular meeting.
I think so. I think we should leave the fire authority meeting alone.
That is a good.
So we're gonna start 6 PM. The joint meeting will start at 6 PM.
Okay.
And then,
Okay,
As far as where,
Yeah, it's gonna be harder for people to get to.
I mean, where do we have enough space? We may have enough space in the BOCC room. That's a squeeze.
Georgia, also, I'm just offering up, City Hall is available. I probably is big enough.
sure, that'd be good for me.
Makes it convenient for her. Yeah. That works for me. I don't care.
and then just go on from there at City Hall at 7. So, okay,
Yeah,
With the fire authority.
Just 6.
just 6. Wendy, we discarded the notion of trying to do both meetings in the same evening.
Oh, we did?
Yes, so fire authority board is gonna meet on Wednesday. And it's a public meeting. You're all invited, but you don't have to be there unless you're on the board.
So then the,
Starting at 6 o'clock at Idaho Springs City Hall on the 22nd. That joint meeting
okay,
for the presentation from Kelly and Jeremy.
very good. And so then I'm sorry, your meeting is the night before?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
sorry, you lost me. So when is the fire authority meeting? Just fire authority?
21st.
The 21st. All right, thank you.
There's a series of agenda.
No, that's fine. There were too many changes and I got lost.
That's okay.
George, who will be sending out the meetings?
That just did.
Just sent out a meeting invite.
It's a BOCC. Correct.
And fire authority.
And fire authority.
I think Peter's interpreting it as a fire authority board meeting that we're being invited to.
Yeah.
That's
sending out the invitation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Beth.
I don't think Beth has, if she's using this list, that means that the members of your councils are not on it. Please share with them.
Don't have entire.
Okay, all right, feel better. Oh, gosh.
But I have.
Say we.
Report there. It still does, then 1.2. Yeah, those email addresses will remain.
true.
Okay.
Then I think we're there.
Just point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. When do we have to make a decision about sales tax versus property tax?
Technically want to give notice to the clerk and recorder by July that you intend to bring something, but you actually don't need to provide the actual ballot resolution until the beginning of September.
Thank you.
So we've got some time.
Okay, but I feel like we have time to maybe do a little PR work, letting people know.
After the store, because if we start having honest conversations in September.
Right.
Probably should have a really good idea of what we intend to do in June, so we start having appropriate conversation.
The PR starts next week when our survey hits every single mailbox.
And in my mind, we started that conversation in the fall when we sent a survey to every mailbox for the fire.
Okay.
We want to continue that conversation.
Yes.
Rapidly.
Yes, to be successful.
And we're doing the town halls.
This is another good thing for you all to know. We're doing town halls. We've got 5 of them on our calendar. We're going to be in Idaho Springs. We're going to be in Georgetown.
Evergreen.
St. Mary's, Dumont. Our message is our budget needs and our goals. One of our goals is to introduce the right ballot measure.
That'll be part of the conversation.
Yep.
Town halls. When do those meetings start? May 12th.
May
12 is
12th.
our first one.
Oh, it's soon. Okay.
Yep, they're on our website and they're on our Facebook page, on all of our social media.
I've seen it
Yep.
advertised. That's good.
Yep, so just,
So you got
I don't know
the word
off the
out.
top of my head. It's the 12th
Yeah.
of May.
Well, I think the sooner we can come up with strategy, the better. It's going to take some time and convincing. I mean, this is good, really good data here. And I think it's given us some things to think about. And we were kind of full bore sales tax, I think, for a while there. And now I think we're also saying, well, maybe this needs to be something combination. If it's combination, we're also hearing that may not be practical in one ballot measure. So we're really
Which
gonna
one
have to
comes first?
think hard about this.
I'm gonna do my best to have us set up to really see all these factors at once in our next meeting.
Because sometimes, I mean, if you can somehow distill this into what people would understand in a town hall or the public, I mean, we've been dealing with this for a couple of years here, right? But now we've got this information to think about, well, okay, most of the property tax, the bulk is paid for by, I don't think a lot of people look at it that way. What's it gonna cost me in my home?
It went up $200.
I know, but that is a perception and we
Right,
just gotta
right.
deal with that. And the more we can try to build awareness about, okay, who's paying what and what the reality is, I think that's important.
Yep.
The messaging.
Yeah, it's around making it clear that, right, like the reason property tax hits people in the gut so hard is because they notice.
You get the bill.
You get the bill, you see the number, or if I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna add 1% to your sales tax burden, $3 at a time, every time you buy something off Amazon for $20,000 a year. It's actually $1,000 I just taxed you. You just don't see it all at once. But I think for decision makers, it's important to understand that relationship, right? Your consumption budget, unless you are extremely poor, is bigger than your housing budget.
Right.
So any increase. The other thing I want to point out, and I should have added this, all the transactions in the county, that's exempt, doesn't matter, ski lift, gas, ski lift tickets, all that stuff are less than the value of our assessed property. Right? So because you're dealing with a smaller pie, your rate will be higher than if you take your biggest pie and spread it out, right? Which is the reason why the mill increases, especially on homes, are not as dramatic as people think.
I promise I'm gonna get us all out of here. Kelly, did you have a thought?
Good.
Withdrawn again. Sorry. It's my favorite thing to do at the end of meetings these days. Does someone want to have the last word? Does someone have something uplifting on their mind that they would like to share as the last word?
Before we get to that, just one other question. I know we had some discussion about any other type of tax, like an admissions tax or something like that, like for ski, like on a ski, to try to target, the visitors at specific events like either rafting or skiing. Is that still on the table or a possibility, or is that?
Not for the county. No, the excise tax bill did not get introduced, so we do not have the ability to.
That was related to the excise tax bill. Okay.
There's a bill that gave us an additional, all of us, the ability to cause higher lodging tax rates.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure that's the right source of funding for public safety needs.
That's kind of off the table, at least for now.
I think so.
Aside from the animal thing, we want to set a next meeting.
Do we have a, oh yeah,
We do not.
we do not. Yeah, we should schedule another meeting because I was talking about next steps.
I thought the next one was gonna be the next week. Could have it after the annual report meeting.
If it's only 15.
How fast can you talk, Jim?
Serve dinner.
26th. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
April or May?
May 19th.
May 19.
May 19th would be that would be same place, same time.
That'd be fine with me.
Meeting here.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Both meetings.
You guys have a meeting.
We have.
Is that daytime or evening? Sorry.
I was thinking daytime.
So same time as today?
Yeah.
We could have a standing meeting from 2 to 3:30 that day.
Oh.
So
It wouldn't be nighttime.
19th. Our business.
Okay, daytime is okay.
Motion board.
26th.
We could,
Memorial Day. 26th is Memorial Day.
the 19th, we could do in the morning if that.
I'll take days off.
I'm wide open on the 19th.
It's the Raptors cleanup day. So they'll be out there cleaning up the creek.
Okay, is that?
Monday, the 19th.
I've got the hydro team is meeting at 9 that morning.
Tuesday, the 27th.
Well, what about the 22nd, starting at 4:00?
I know.
That would give you time to get over here after your meeting.
The Clear Creek High School graduation parade is at 4:00.
Oh, never mind.
So, but that doesn't last too long.
What does the 27th look like for people?
We may have a board meeting today. It's the day we're looking at.
We have our city council meeting
too.
We have CCI.
Oh,
It's bumped today because of the holiday.
I'm not gonna be here.
You're gonna be gone.
I'm gone.
Did we give up on the night?
That's why he's scheduled.
We were talking daytime meetings.
That's why I'm scheduling it then.
29th,
so confused.
29th.
Oh.
We're looking at daytime, aren't we?
You're gone that whole week, are you?
Oh, yeah.
All right, you said 27th.
I'm gone that whole week.
7th, we could do like 2:00, 3:00.
Did Brian just say that might be a Board
Well,
of
we
County
can-
Commissioner meeting?
I can make sure the agenda would allow you to get here by 3.
Let alone our brains.
Long day for you guys. Jeez. I wouldn't wish that.
It's complicated. 23rd?
I know, I don't know.
I know we don't love meeting on Fridays, but
That's wide open for me.
23rd of May?
Of course, that's the Friday before Memorial Day, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Probably some sun.
Did we give up on Monday the
Right.
19th?
I thought we did give up on Monday the 19th.
Somebody, you guys had something?
Monday, the 19th?
Because you were looking.
I was thinking nighttime and I.
Morning.
A little bit, if it's during the day, that's different.
I can do the morning of the 19th.
I can
Or
do morning
or
of the 19th.
afternoon?
Does anybody have a problem with the morning of the 19th?
We have a leadership team meeting at 10.
Okay.
What time?
Along with
What
that.
time are we thinking?
10 to 12.
9 o'clock?
Can you just say you have a meeting at 10?
4:00 blast.
Right.
Noon?
No.
I can do an hour meeting at noon. We don't need 2 hours.
It's fine with me.
Tax discussion.
No idea.
I don't hear anybody else speaking up. Are we doing noon?
This meeting that we're doing right now.
Can you make 11:30 work?
Yes.
Trying to decide what time.
19.
May 19th, 11:30 here.
11:30, May 19th.
Got it.
We'll end at 1. We'll challenge ourselves to be just a half hour more efficient. We really have, I think it's just one topic. And we're going to do our best to have all the information we need to know where we're going.
All right. Monday, May
Okay.
19th, 11:30 to 1. Got it.
Yeah, and I think Beth's gonna send out a.
That's good.
I always have 2 entries. I enter it and then I get Beth's official.
Something about the blood drive.
Megan wants the last word.
Okay, cool.
We have a blood drive benefiting EMS this Thursday from 10 to 2:30 in our county commissioner meeting room. You can sign up on our website or on any of our social medias there, or I can just send you the link if you want it. So we still are trying to fill it. I think we have 19 spots left.
How many?
20.
Oh, wow. And I'm sorry. I thought I had it on my calendar. When is it again?
This Thursday, 10 to 2:30.
Do it.
And do you need to sign up ahead of time?
Don't have to, but it's recommended, so you can like sign up at 11, then you can come at 11. But it might be kind of hit or miss if you come in. You don't have an appointment.
Okay.
Donate if you can. We just gave blood again a few days ago. And so far it appears it was life saving in the end, which is great. And we don't have blood in the county right now. And so this is how we get it replaced fast. If we can do this and make them successful, there's a chance that we don't have gaps without blood.
And I apologize. I have seen this somewhere. I thought I put it on this calendar, but it might have been on my other calendar. Where do I get the information, or do you want to just tell me?
Blood drive?
Yeah.
I can send it to you. It's in the newsletter. It's on our website.
Thank you.
Medias too. Yep.
It's everywhere. I just haven't checked this.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, and it's a BOCC meeting room?
It's in the BOCC room in Georgetown.
Okay. You all, they promise they're going to do something nice with your blood. Please go. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.